Welcome to Give Me Hope with your host and author, Johanna Vendel. Come join the conversation as Johanna focuses on sharing impactful personal narratives of loss. Her platform provides a safe space for individuals to express themselves, find comfort, and build connections as they navigate their grief journey. So now, please welcome the host of Give Me Hope, Johanna Vendel.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna. I am very glad to be here with you today. And if you miss our shows, you can watch it on LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook, and a few multiple other platforms. If you would like to go have a look there. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please feel free to subscribe to this video right here and this YouTube channel. And for many more stories to come. I am still a new host. This is only my 14th show, and I need people to like, share, and subscribe. So our guest in studio today is Phil Weiss. How will I say your last name? Sorry.
It's weiss.
Weiss. As you can hear, I am not English. So Phil, I can say very easily. Very welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna.
Thanks so much for inviting me to be on.
Yes, I hear you have a very interesting story as well from where you have come from and why you do what you do today. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Sure, happy to. So, as Johanna said, my name is Phil Weiss. Today, I'm a financial advisor. I started out my career as a tax guy. I was a CPA. I went through a bunch of different things along the way. I like to tell people as I made the transition out of the tax department that the purpose of my job was to help companies increase the size of the national debt by shuffling paper around. That doesn't sound like a very rewarding existence. So I learned about the CFA, which is the Chartered Financial Analyst Program, and I added that so I could get out of the tax department. And then I worked as an analyst. And then when I left the firm I was working as an analyst for, I went to work for another financial advisor. And then I tell people I got tired of working for idiots. So I decided to be the idiot. And that's how I started my own firm. But it was really about just, I have a certain way I want to do things. I know how I want to treat people. And having my own firm allows me to do that.
Yes, and then also helping people because the way you help people now, if we think about my show of Give Me Hope, you definitely know how to give a few people hope. I believe after the death of your mother, if you want to start with a little story to tell us about your mother and where that came from, then where you decided to do what you are doing now.
Sure. So my mom was, she was a stay-at-home mom at the beginning. I have a sister and she took care of us. And ultimately, she went back to school in her 40s and she became an occupational therapist. And what happened to her, which I'll talk about in a second, is really the driver for who I try to work with and why I want to help them. And part of, the other designation that I have that I didn't say when I introduced myself is I'm also a registered life planner. And a registered life planner really, that's about working with people to help them identify those things that are most important to them so that they can do those things and not get to the end of their lives feeling regret. Because if we can start working on those things now, we can avoid regret.
Yes.
And so how I got here. So I work with women facing new beginnings, and I'll tell you why that is. And growing up, as I said, there was my mom, my father, my sister, and I. And my father was responsible for taking care of the finances. My mother had primary caregiving responsibility for my sister and I. That was the traditional family model. But here's the thing, when it came to finances, my father wasn't good at it at all. He had no idea what he was doing. He didn't do things well. We had unpaid bills. We had no credit. We had no savings. When I was old enough to drive, I remember driving to the local utility to pay them because we had had services turned off. When it was time for me to go to college, I was told, go anywhere you want. So I went and visited a number of schools, and I went to Duke, and I fell in love with the campus, and I wanted to be a doctor, and I thought it was the best place for me to go to medical school. So I went there, I became a psychology major. I did a lot of things to stay in school. But at the end of my junior year, we realized this, I had talked, like I had meetings with the president of the university to do things to try to stay in school. And we met, and it was decided or agreed that I needed to leave school so that I could earn the money to pay back what I still owed, and then I could come back and finish. So at that point, I left, and it was a toxic situation at home. So I ended up packing up my car and I moved across the country. I moved out to Arizona. I'm originally from New Jersey. And I lived out there for about 18 months, and I was ready to go back to school. But by that point, I decided that I was going to be an accounting major because while my grades were good, I didn't think they were good enough to get into medical school. And being a psychology major meant I was going to have to go to grad school after I was done. And even though I needed 6 courses to graduate, I just didn't think that made sense. Duke doesn't offer accounting degrees to undergrads. They have courses, but they don't offer the degree. So I had dual residency. I had residency in Arizona. I had residency in New Jersey from my parents. And I decided I'd get a better job coming out of Rutgers than the University of Arizona. So I moved back home. And I went to Rutgers. I will tell you that I paid for tuition. I paid for rent at times with credit card checks because although I had paid off what I owed Duke, I still didn't have a lot of money. And so I accumulated credit card debt. But to me, it was good debt because it was the only way I was going to get to where I wanted to go.
Yes, you have to have your eyes focused on what you want. And as soon as you at least get through all your education and you get to where you want to be by the end of the day, then you can say, okay, now I have all this knowledge within me to make sure that I don't end up at the same place as my parents who could not work with money.
That's right. And so after I finished school, I moved back home because that's what I could afford. And one day I came home and I got the mail, and there were these credit card bills, and they had my name on them, but they weren't mine. And I did some investigating, and I got a copy of one of the applications. And what happened was my father forged my name to open up these accounts because he couldn't get credit. After I had the proof, I went and confronted him, and I was paying my parents' rent. So I took that rent and I redirected it to pay off those balances because the credit card companies wouldn't take them out of my name, even though like there was forgery and everything else, they wouldn't do that.
Because it's
And
family.
yeah,
They just see it as family.
yeah. And then I moved out, and after, while all this was going on, my mother went back to school and she became an occupational therapist. And I know that she did this so that because she was trying to put herself in a financial position where she could leave my father and survive on her own. She started her own business and she was doing well, but unfortunately, doing that, she neglected her own health. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. My mom asked me to help. And because that's when we found out how bad the financial situation really was. My parents had to sell their house while my mother was undergoing treatment because they were going to get foreclosed on. They couldn't afford to stay there. Those credit cards that my father got in my name, well, they let him keep them and he stopped paying them. So they were all in collection. It was a mess. I did what I could, but unfortunately, my mom didn't make it. After 18 months, she passed. Her breast cancer had metastasized to her brain. And so now I said I work with women facing new beginnings, and I do this work to try to help keep other women from going through the kind of things that my mother did. And I said that I'm a registered life planner. So one of the elements of my life plan is that I want to create a scholarship for women who go back to school later in life. And I have put money into an account to start funding that. I'm now trying to investigate the best way to go about instituting that, putting something in place so that I can distribute that money to women who need the help. on an annual basis. I want to make this something that's an ongoing thing. I don't want to
Wow.
make it just a one-time shot.
Wow, that
And
is amazing that you will go this far to help a stranger.
well, I mean, like I said, I know what my mother went through, and I'd like to help others avoid those type of things. And I mean, there's other things too, like new beginnings. That like widowhood is certainly one, right? Losing your mom, losing your, it's for losing your spouse, right? It's for divorce. It's for other changes. I mean, we go through so many changes in life, and the life planning work can really help you figure out
Yes.
like what do
I
you want to
mean,
do next.
you get into a stage where you feel like, oh, now I've got this mountain in front of me. How am I going to get over it? I remember myself being in a stage like that previously as well. When we lost my dad, we lost my twin sister, and then
Mm,
my mother had to do all of their things. And my dad did not work with money good either. And I could see the struggles my mom had, but not knowing what to do in the future is definitely bad. And then we lost my mom. Then who was all that work laid upon? My mom said, well, if I must ever die one day, Johanna, I would like you to make sure that the rest of our kids, we were still four children at that time, um, will not fight about the little bit that I have to give, because she didn't have money. So all she had was her furniture and her car. That was literally all my mom had. But just to get the whole, um, I am not 100% sure what the English word for this is now, but after someone die, the will and everything,
mhm.
what do you
Yes,
call that?
it's a will.
Um,
Your
so
estate.
estate, yes. So the estate needed to be handled. And oh my word, it was a lot for me to take in and a lot for me to learn about. And at that time, I said to my husband that we should actually have a file with all your things in there, But
Mhm.
personally, if I can say this to you, Phil, if my husband must die now, his file, I'll be able to take his file and go according to what I see in the file and help myself a little bit. But when I die, I don't have anything, and I should start to think about it as well, because you always think the man is the breadwinner in the house. But what happens when he dies,
Mhm.
So I will definitely open up my ears nicely to what you have to say today, because I think there is a lot of women out there that's sitting in a position like this. And yes, so tell us a little bit more about your father and your mother, and then how they passed, and then we can go on to what you now do for other women.
Okay. So like I said, my mom, she was 52 when she was diagnosed, and she passed. She was 53. So like she wasn't actually, she was still 51 because her birthday, she got diagnosed in the year before her birthday.
Wow, that's
Is
how
it
old I am now,
really?
51.
Yeah. And like I said,
So
so
young.
it was very young, and she had basically she had a postmenopausal cancer that grew like it was premenopausal. So it was probably there before. She neglected taking care of herself because she was driven to start her business and to get on strong financial footing. And that meant she didn't take care of herself. That's,
See, that
you
is
know,
what women do.
yeah,
They neglect themselves because they know their responsibilities are their children and their home. You know, as long as you have a roof over the heads of your children and food on the table, then a mother is happy.
yeah, yeah. And my father actually outlived my mother by many years, but he, he was not a good person, my father, and my sister and I, we didn't talk to my father for over 25 years. And then a few months before COVID, he would periodically reach out. Like after my mother passed, like I wrote him a letter and I explained, tried, because it was sitting down and having a conversation wasn't going to happen. So I wrote a letter and explained all these feelings. And the answer that I got back, it just wasn't, it showed that he had no idea what I was talking about and didn't really understand. So my sister and I ultimately decided not to speak to him. Like after my mother passed, I remember the first Thanksgiving, we thought that the three of us were going to be together. And my father told my sister, who had moved back into the house while my mother was sick, to this house that they moved into. And he told us that he was going to see his sister in Texas. Well, that wasn't really true. We found out later. He really went on a singles cruise. That's what he did after my mother passed a few months later. And so that, and like I said, the letter and everything, I had told my father once I wanted to love him because of who he was, not just because he was my father. And, that didn't happen. But I got this letter and I read it and I said, you know what? I think it's time. And I reached out to my sister and she hadn't read the letter and I told her to read it. And we eventually reconnected. And it was actually the weekend before basically the country shut down for COVID that I brought my wife, who never met my father. I brought my kid. I have 4 kids. None of them had ever met him. And my sister brought her 2 kids. And the 7 of us met my father and this woman that he'd been living with for 25 years. She couldn't marry him because then she would inherit his poor financial position. And after that, we corresponded. We would email all the time. When I did webinars, my father would come on. He didn't really know what I was talking about, but it was a chance for him to see and hear me. And I had my father and this woman, they came to visit us that summer. And then we invited him back the following summer. But unfortunately, he got COVID and he passed. So, like looking back, like if there's anybody listening that you had a relationship with a parent that it stopped and you didn't talk to them, it's never too late. And like I look at it that I'm so glad that I reconnected, even though like we found out something. My father didn't really change in some of the ways that he changed like I thought, but some other ways he was never going to change. But I have, through all that I've been through, I've learned to look forward and not dwell on the past.
Yes.
And which I think is so important. And by doing that, I was able to communicate with my father and let him back in a way that was comfortable for me. And now I don't have to worry about or have regrets about what I didn't do or what would have happened. Like it was right not to talk to him, but it was also right to reconnect. And it was fortunate that that happened before he passed.
Yes. I also say, it's really important to keep that connection with your family. I know your mom and dad can sometimes be a little bit much when you grow up and you think you know it all and you just want to do your own thing and they don't know what you're talking about. They old and things like that. And then eventually you move on with your life and maybe don't talk to that person. I remember I didn't talk to my brother there for a while because he was constantly drunk. And he was an alcoholic basically his whole life, and then he was going to die. Then all of a sudden he's not, and going to a hospital, cleaning him up a little bit. And he promised he will never drink again and he wants to live long for his children. And then I will reconnect with him a little bit again because I always try to speak positivity into him, and he was a good brother when he was in the house. I miss that brother of mine a lot. And then, like I say, he was almost going to die, I think 3 or 4 times, where he was so yellow and go to hospital. They clean him up a little bit and his body gets stronger and healthier. And then all of a sudden, COVID came as well in 2020 and took his life. And then before he died, I lost my younger sister. So after my mom, I lost my elder sister in 2016. Okay, we are 4 children now. I lost my elder sister in 2016. Then I lost my little sister to a car accident in 2020, just before COVID hit. And then, after everything that my brother has gone through, COVID came and filled up his lungs with water, and he could not resist that because his body was so weak. And I lost my brother as well. So personally, I've lost 6 people: my mom, dad, 3 sisters, and 1 brother already. And I am the last one standing. I'm only 51 years old.
So sorry. That sounds very difficult.
Yes. But I have to say, I'm doing okay now, by having this podcast. And I'm also author. You don't know anything about me.
No.
I've written 3 books as well. Life, Think Again, which is the story of how all my family members died. And the reason for me coming to America, because, America is the country of the free. And I have to say, since I am here, since 2016, I I cannot tell you how much my life has changed just by releasing stress, tension, heartache that I needed to learn to live with and cope with. And since I'm in America, I've lost my last 3 siblings from 2016 till 2020, 3 siblings in 3 years. That was crazy. But I didn't go and sit in a corner. I did. Don't take me wrong. I did. But then I wrote my book. My book started to really let me release a lot of tension and hurt. And then I wrote a second and a third book, which was just published last week, to be honest with you. And Navigating Through Losses and Grief was my second book. And then my third book is removing my mask that I was wearing for 27 years since my dad passed away, and since I've lost all my entire direct family. I've written my third book, Unseen Tears Beneath the Mask. And at the end of this book, I am actually removing my mask, and this is who I am. I am Johanna Wendel, and I'm never going to sit in a corner again. I am just going to try to inspire other people, to show them that life can go on, even if you think the mountain is so big, you cannot get over it. Believe me, if you keep your eyes focused on that point of the mountain, you will eventually see the sunrise again.
Yes, and then that ties back into what I said. Like you have to look forward. You can't
Yes.
dwell on all the things that happened in the past, because if you do, you'll wallow in your sorrow, and you'll be depressed, and you'll
It
be
will definitely
miserable.
break you down.
Yeah. I know I have a client that we did her life plan, and I know her really well, and her life planning story is a wonderful story. It's a very positive story, but because of the work that we've done together, I know her well, and I know her family, and she's going through losing her brother right now. She's around your age, and her brother is in hospice care right now. And like she told me when this happened, and like my client's in really good financial shape, and her brother's not. And his family, like she's trying to help figure out how to help his family, and I've been trying to help them with some, help her with some of the questions that she has to help them navigate. But her brother is not the financially responsible person that his sister and my client is. And so it's very hard. But she had told me, like, I knew about her brother before he got sick, and their view and their point of view on life was very different. And that had caused them to kind of fall apart. And recently, like she brought her father, who's still alive, and she went, and her kids, and they all went to see her brother. And she told me what a wonderful trip it was, because it was the first time in a long time that she and her brother had good open communication, and it didn't
Connections.
have all those other barriers that have been put in the way over the last several years.
Wow, that's amazing. That connection is so important. And I always say to people as well, um, tomorrow is not promised.
Nope.
So we only literally have today to make everything right with our family, because yes, they are our family, they are our blood. And they always say blood is thicker than water and all of those things, but only after you lose them, you're going to realize that you're going to be sorry if you didn't make things right with them.
Yes.
It is, it's a vicious circle. I mean, yesterday we cannot get back. So if you lose them today, or like I say, tomorrow is not promised. If you lose them today, you cannot get back yesterday that it was today, tomorrow.
No.
So yeah, sure. It is actually so serious when one speaks about life and connections and don't burn bridges and
No. No.
things
No.
like
No.
that,
You're
I'm
right. And you
sure
have to.
you've heard a lot of stories already.
I have. I mean, I'll tell you that just before I got on this call, I got a call from a friend of mine, and we haven't talked in a long time. And like when I heard his voice, I kind of like laughed, right? Because I hadn't heard from him in so long. And he goes, "Well, why are you laughing?" And I said, "Because I'm really surprised to hear from you, because there was a time when we saw each other all the time, and we're still friends, but we don't talk that much anymore." And then I found out why I haven't heard from him this time. And like I was glad, like it's also not only can we not, you can't undo the past, right? So you have to be careful. Like I didn't give him a grief, right? Like I kind of laughed. I heard from him. It had been so long. Well, he found that he is going in on Monday. He has prostate cancer and he's having surgery on Monday. And we had a really nice talk and he told me what he's going through. And like, but I'm glad I approached it the way that I did, because that allowed us to have a good conversation. And we ended with, okay, when are you going to be back home? I'm actually going away on vacation. But before I go, I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to call you and find out how you're doing. And he said, absolutely. So it's always important too that we think about what we say. And a lot of times when you don't hear from somebody, there's a reason. So be careful, because part of being a friend is being understanding. So you don't want to just give people a hard time or jump on them or whatever, because
Yes.
you want to give them a chance and find out what's going on in their lives. Just like you're living your life, they're living their life too.
Yes. I always say also, if someone bumps into you in the streets or on the sidewalk or in a shopping mall or something like that, don't go like, what the heck, like some people do. And if some people bump in me sometimes, I'm like, no, it's okay. Have a good day, because you never know. And it almost wants to give me a knot in my throat to think about it like that, because I remember when I lost someone, I think it was my mom at that time. I had to go to work that week before her funeral. And I was driving and thinking of my mom, and I wasn't in a good place, and I had a lady road raging or something and swearing at me, and thinking, well, so she parked, and I got out and wanting to go into the mall, and she's like, what's up with you, and why are you looking at me like that? I say, maybe because I lost my mother yesterday, and you are going on with me like that. Sometimes you should consider what other people is going through.
Right.
She immediately changed her attitude and she said, I'm sorry. I said, you are excused. I'm just going to go and do my shopping now, if you don't mind. And you know what? I don't know what went through her head for the rest of that day, but I hope she will never do that to someone else again. It is just that, and that's very important, to treat people how you want to be treated.
Yes.
And there's just a little handful of people that actually have gone through some bad ordeals in their lives, and that has opened their eyes to the future already. And then there's some that hasn't. And it's those people who hasn't gone through something bad in their lives that doesn't know how it feels when someone is in a certain situation in life, you know. So never treat people bad like that. Um, I promised myself that doesn't matter who it is who approach me on the streets or everything, I will always be kind. You know, it doesn't cost anything to be kind. Sometimes they just need someone to listen to them and say, yeah, you know, look, if it is a beggar, you never know where that people will find their next meal. And if I do have a few cents or a dollar or two to give them, I always try to give, you know. But yeah, that's just me. Hey, I'm glad I am the way I am now today.
No, it sounds that's a good way to be.
Yes, yes. So tell us about your mom. When did she die?
It was 1992, September 4th.
Okay. Wow. And your dad at COVID time 2020.
No, it was the year. So it wasn't 2020. It's actually July 10th, and so today is the 9th, right? So and it was in 2021. It's in 2021.
Okay. So tomorrow he will be 4 years.
Yes, that's right.
Well, sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And you have a sister now, just you and your
Yes,
sister.
that's right.
Okay. Well, I hope that you guys are blessed. And I think that you are blessed because you are doing so much good in your life. You know, you want to tell us a little bit about what you can do for women who
Absolutely.
has been through a devastating time in their lives?
Sure. So let's talk a little bit more about what life planning is and how it works. And then I'll tell you a story. It wasn't with loss, but it's still what life planning can do. So life planning, it's really to help you identify those things that are most important to you. And I call it, or say that we have a team of resources. It's not just money, but time is a resource, energy is a resource, our attention is a resource. So that's our team of resources: time, energy, attention, and money. And we want to align those with our values and what matters most to us. And that's really what life planning does. So we start with questions to help us figure out, what does your most fulfilled life look like? And then that's our exploration. Then we go through vision. And in the vision meeting, there's some exercises that I give. And the exercises include, one of them includes 3 questions. And the first of those questions is a fun one to answer. Imagine that money was no object and you could do anything you wanted. What would you do, and how would you live your life, and what would you change? But then we start to get a little bit more serious. Now, the second question is, this time you go to the doctor, you get the unfortunate news that you have 5 to 10 years left to live. The good news is you're not ever going to feel sick. The bad news is you don't know when you're going to go. Money is part of the equation now. So now the question is, what would you do? How would you live your life? And what would you change? And then we get to the third question, and that's really the hardest one of all, because this time you go to the doctor and you get the unfortunate news that today's the day. And now it's not what would you do? It's what did you not get to do? And
Yeah.
who did you not get to be? And so then we take those 3 questions and we use them to create a vision, which usually we create an event that's within the next 6 to 18 months, something for you to strive for and shoot for that should be part of your financial plan. But it's not just money, it's about your life.
Yes.
And then we take that, and then after we have that vision, now we go through this process is called evoke. So it's exploration, vision. Now it's obstacles. What can get in your way?
Mhm.
And all these things, remember, it's not me telling you anything. It's me asking you questions and you thinking through these things yourself. And like when I get to these obstacles meetings, so it's what can possibly get in the way? Like, here's your vision. So, okay, now you want to do this. What can get in the way? And then it's, what can you do about that? How can you do it? Um, who can help you? And even the most important, when are you going to do that?
Yes.
And
And
when I,
just one thought that
hmm,
I am just getting now is when you say, and who's going to help you? Do you know what I have realized? And it's very sad to say this, but when you try to look into your closest family members' eyes, they are normally the people who want to run away. They don't want to help you because I take it everybody's got their own life and their own struggles and things like that. And even some of your friends run away because now you're grieving so much that you're pushing people away with your grief. So, who wants to really help you? It's people like you who has listened to so many stories and has gone through what you've gone through now also. It's amazing to know excuse me, to know that you do get people who actually wants to listen, like me, for instance. Now i I am here and I am on this platform now to have this ear to listen to people's struggles, going through grief and loss and struggles, financial struggles, like you are now telling us about. And we don't always realize that these financial struggles are dragging us down.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you get that little bit of a focus of what you can help people to do, I mean, I'm the way you're speaking is I'm just thinking about my own struggles as well, And it's like you say, if you don't speak to someone about little things like this, you maybe will not know the answer because your thoughts are always thinking about what can I do better to not be in the same situation, because I don't want to be in the same situation as what my parents were previously as well. We always want a better future, but I always say it is the choices that we make today that's going to change our future. You can continue. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I mean, and that's right. So that last line, the choices that we make today that impact our future. And that's what this is about. Because if we can start to make those choices that can affect our future now, then we don't get to the end of our lives, regret not having done things like I told you about that scholarship. Well, if I can do that now, like I get to see the benefit. And it's not just something that happens after I'm gone, but I can actually see the the way that people react and the benefit that it provides. And I mean, I think that that's part of it too. And I'll tell you the story like about one of my clients that went through this process. So she called me or she emailed me when I was early in the life planning process. And she said, Phil, I left my job. I took a leave of absence. I don't know if I'm going to go back. I don't know what it means to my financial plan. I don't know what any of this means, but this is what I need to do. So I called her up and I asked her about what was going on. And she worked for a company that was really difficult to work for. She had two daughters. One of them was in high school. The other one had just started college. She would be on the phone with her daughter till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which is not easy when you have a demanding job.
Mm-hmm.
And she's under a lot of stress. She had all the finances, responsibilities in the household were hers. Her husband didn't do that. And so I said, let's work on your life plan. And we did. And it ended up she left that job. And because they were in the financial position where she could, right? And just that experience alone, like I'd look at her and she looked like a different person. She sounded like a different person because she had less stress and more freedom. A year later, she emails me and says, so Phil, when I was in my 20s, she goes, she lives outside of Chicago. And she said, I would go to Cubs games. And I'd see these older women, they'd be sitting there and they'd like either be ushers or they'd be taking tickets or whatever. And she said, I want to do that someday. So she goes, so I went on the Cubs website and I applied for a job. She goes, so next day I go in for an interview. I'm wearing my Cubs World Series t-shirt. I'm wearing my Cubs jersey. There's all these younger kids there that are dressed nicely. She goes, I got the job. And she said, I don't know how long I'm going to make it. She like her original thing was, I only want to make it long enough. There's also going to be this concert at Wrigley Field this summer. I want to go work at the concert. Well, she made it through the whole season. She even worked. They had a hockey game played outside in Wrigley Field on December 31st of last year. She worked then. She's back working there again.
Oh my.
And she's, I have met with some of her friends, and one of whom also became a client. She told her friends when we talked about the life planning experience that working with me changed her life.
You
And
see, it gives them motivation because
yes,
by the end of the day, if you don't have to worry about what's going to happen if I must die and I leave all this up to my kids, you know, or my husband or something like that. And when you know that you've got your life plan, you can actually go out and just enjoy yourself now. Just enjoy life because that's what life is all about. Every
yes,
single day we wake up, if we wake up and we take a breath in the morning, we are blessed.
that's right.
I, my husband and my kids sometimes say to me, Mommy, you are so boring sometimes, because uh, I I sometimes just am so serious about life, but I think it's because they haven't had so many losses. And yes, they see me grief, and I have overcome quite a lot now in this last 4 years of my life where I've lost everyone. And I've come a long way. Sometimes I can't speak about it yet because I mostly listen to other people's stories now, which really helps me a lot. But coming back to myself now, I really need to have a life plan for myself as well to um, not have to worry about what's going to happen, when
Mhm.
the time comes, because we cannot wait for tomorrow, really, to be honest with you. But yes, okay, well, you can continue. Sorry, it's just you put this thought in my head again.
Mhm. That's all fine. Um, and and then after we do the life planning work, then we get into the financial side and we make like when we do a financial plan, though, it doesn't just include like the finances, like when we get to goals, which I'll tell you, I actually just wrote a blog that they're not really goals, they're possibilities, right? Because whatever we put down that we think is going to happen, it's not going to happen that way because life throws us curveballs, right? It doesn't all go the way that we plan, but
Yes.
it gives us a framework and it gives them some structure. But we then go and we make sure that we include things in the financial plan. Like I have a client that when we were going through her life plan, she told me that she had this one piece of jewelry that was from her mother and this other piece of jewelry that was from her grandmother, and she wanted to combine them into one. And so in her financial plan, in the goals section, I said, well, how much do you think that's going to cost? And so we made sure that we put in to her life plan her to go and combine these two pieces of jewelry because that would bring her comfort, right? Because she could wear this one piece of jewelry and it would
She
be
has a
like,
little bit of both of them.
yes, exactly. Or, I have this that I wear. I wear it because this was my mother's. And so that way my mother's always with me. Like it's
Yes.
important to me. And so I
That's
like
why
never
I
take it
have all
off.
the pictures. My whole house is actually full of pictures, and it's just all my family members. And I sit on my couch and I just look at all the pictures. When it comes to jewelry, I have now given my twin sister's ring to my little girl, and she is now valuing that ring so much. And then I gave my previous wedding ring from my first marriage to my daughter, who is from my first marriage. And she, because when I have had when I had the two rings, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to wait till I'm dead one day and say, oh, you can have this jewelry and you can have that jewelry. Personally, I like to make jewelry as well.
Mm.
And I have so much jewelry that I don't even wear lately. I used to wear a lot of jewelry all the time. Every outfit had its own jewelry that to go with. But sometimes people need to also give it to someone who's going to appreciate it when you're not there anymore. Because sometimes after you die, people can fight about things, and that
Hmm.
is so sad to think that's your time of grief. You have to, in that first week, you have to organize a funeral. You have to try to think clearly when your heart is broken into a million pieces.
Yes.
So sometimes it's good to just give while you're still alive as well, so that you can see how they can appreciate that's something that was so close to you, And I know both my daughters, my little girl, she's 14 years old. She wears the ring around her neck if she doesn't want to wear it on her finger, you know. And my other daughter, she wears it on her right hand. Whenever she's going out somewhere, having mommy right there with her. And it's so nice to see when they do that, And it makes my life more happier, living my life till God decide to take it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know my mother-in-law, when she had she had gone on dialysis near the end of her life, but before she passed, she sat down with my wife and her other daughter and like went through, mostly my wife, because my wife was she was that was just kind of how my wife is, right? But she sat down with my wife mostly, and they went through all her jewelry, and my mother-in-law said who she wanted to have everything, and like all of it was given away before she passed to avoid just what you said. I mean, that's something that's important. Like I know I have a client that she's a widow, and now she has cancer. And she's been talking to me a lot about the things that she needs to do to make sure that everything's prepared before she goes. And she sent me a copy of her will to look at. And it said that, one of the daughters had the right to, like, if there were any disputes, to decide anything. And I said to her, I understand that there has to be one person. You can't make everything like let them all decide. But I said, if you have things that you think might be of value, either give it away or make sure your intentions are known, because you don't want there to be fights after you're gone
Yes.
about who gets what. And if you make only one daughter have the responsibility, the other two could be upset with her because of the
Yes.
decisions that you gave her the power to make. So think about, can we either give it now or at least make sure that you have created a document with your
Yes.
intention so they know.
Yes, so that they also know that it's not because you love this one more than the other, because, especially when you have kids, I have 4 children, and if you must ask me which child I love the most, it is like you just have so much love and so much love, and, it's all you have so much love to just give to all 4, and it's not like, oh, you love my brother more, or oh, you love my sister more. Children don't see that um, from their parents when life is like that. But from a mother's point of view, who lost a mother now before, and I thought my mom loved my twin sister more than me, because when my twin sister passed away, my mother didn't even come to my birthday on my birthday after my twin sister passed. She would always make an excuse. Oh, that day. Oh, no, I've got something on, or this or that. She'll always try to meet me a day before or a day after, or, oh, it's weekend and I'm invited for this or that. And many times I thought that my mom didn't love me, but eventually she had to die before I realized that she really loved me. If you read my books, you will see that I had a dream of my mom where she actually came to me and didn't want me to see her in my dream, but she held me with her arms around my body. She was standing behind me and she held me and she said, I don't want you to see me. All I want for you is to feel my love. Phil, my mom had to die for me to feel my mom's love from my head to my toes for the first time in my life. And that's why it is so important to make right with the people that you still have in your life, you know. Do you do wills as well?
I I'm not an attorney, so I can't
Okay.
do a will, but I can look at them and I can talk to you about elements of them and things like that, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't have the
So,
ability to
so
draft a
what
will.
we're getting close to the end of our show.
Mhm.
What do you offer people? And I will have all your links available on the description above the video at the end of the video. So if you do watch this video, all Phil's credentials and links will be on the top there. You can just click on it and it will take you straight to Phil. Um, so please tell me, what can people expect?
So usually when I work with clients, we start with their life plan because to me, I'm a fiduciary, which means that I'm supposed to make this recommendations and decisions in your best interests. And if I've done your life plan, I know what's important to you, and it's much easier for me to make recommendations in your best interest. So I like to start with a life plan. Then we will do a financial plan. I help clients with, I can manage clients' assets, their whatever they have in their investments. I can manage all that. I really tell clients that when it comes to your finances, I'm your go-to person. If it's anything, I will help you with anything I can help with. And if there's things like you mentioned, a will, like I can't write a will, I can tell you about things that should be in it. I can help you to make sure you have the right named your beneficiaries and those type of things. But I can't write your will, but I can give you a referral. Like if I'm the quarterback of your financial team, right? And so if there's other things that you need, like I've helped clients, I can't give you a mortgage, but I have people that I can recommend that can help you get a mortgage. I
Mm,
have a couple clients that have issues with dementia. And so there's some special planning that we can do to protect, if you're married and your spouse has dementia can get really expensive because nursing home costs aren't cheap. And you don't want to see like all the costs go to that person and then they're gone and now you don't have any money left for yourself. So there's
yes.
Medicaid planning that we can do. So I can recommend an attorney that can do that, right? If you like in theory, I'm a CPA, I can do tax returns, but I don't really want to do them. I
Mm,
review them, I can help you with tax planning. But if you want somebody to do your taxes, I can refer somebody that can do your taxes, like all those different things, right? Like I said, I'm the quarterback of that team, but it's to help you do a holistic financial plan that really takes into account your best interests and is there somebody that knows you, that understands what's important to you, that can invest in a way that matches with what's important to you, that can help you to really try to live your most fulfilled life. Like that's my goal.
yes. Wow. Okay. Okay. So basically, what you're saying is the file that my husband made, for instance, this is something that I will come to you with and say, okay, now let's plan your future. So, because yes, maybe whatever is in that file is not enough to live maybe another 20 or 30 years. Maybe I will live another 50 years. You never know, you know. And yeah, that is really something to think about, you know. I've I've been thinking about it a lot from my side because I don't have anything set up, and it's starting to bother me because I am speaking to so many people who is going through so much trauma after loss that their financial depression is drowning them. And yeah, wow, this definitely gives you a little bit for your thoughts. Yeah, it makes you think. It definitely makes me think. Let me tell you that even more. Well, anything else that you would like our guests to know about you before we say goodbye?
If you have questions about your financial situation and you'd like somebody to talk to, I don't charge anybody for a free consultation. And you can go to my firm's website. It's apprisewealth.com, and that's APPRISE wealth.com. And you can schedule a free introductory call. You can subscribe to my blog there. I even have if you add 5-things to the end of my website address, you can download a free copy of 5 Things Every Woman Should Know About Finances as well.
Yes, and we will put that in the description as well.
Okay.
Good. Well, Phil, I'm going to love and leave you, and thank you so much for everything that you said today. I might definitely come and press on your button sometime or another.
Okay.
I hope everyone out there can definitely also think about what Phil has said today. We are women, and sometimes we are emotional more than anything else. And when our emotions come in effect with our money, life, and work, and children, and all of that, it sometimes can become overbearing. So I think you should definitely reach out to Phil if you feel the need. And I'm sure he will be able to help you with your financial planning. Phil, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a little different than what I normally speak about, but it just shows you after your losses what God has had in plan for you to help women this way, that you are now doing. And I think you will be blessed for it,
Thank you.
So thank you for coming on to my show. I will be back next week with a new guest, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you all next week. Phil, thank you so much, and we will then say goodbye.
Thank you.
Good. Have a good day, everybody. Goodbye. I just want to...
This has been Give Me Hope with your host, Johanna Vendel. Join Johanna each week and harness the transformative power of storytelling to facilitate healing and growth. Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern.